Besides coffee, what the hell else do you eat before you go for a long, hard ride? What do you do if you're going to be training for a climbing event or a multi-day climbing event that's got climbs that last longer than an hour and you only have hills that last a couple minutes around your house? Everyone, it's Graeme Street. You're joining me here early for a cup of coffee before I head out for my endurance enduro today on my mountain bike. Going to be having some fun with the good weather. Today I'm going to be answering some questions concerning both fueling and climbing. These are questions that I get a lot from different riders from around the world. Some of the answers today are going to resonate with some of you. Some of my answers might be a little bit confusing at first, but I want to remind you that for full details on how different strategies with fueling can play out, refer to my coaching in my master's base program and definitely in my master's in-season program that has coaching for each type of riding, whether it be racing, XC, one-day epic rides and centuries, multi-day events, fueling strategies for each of these different types of things, time trials, crit races, gravel events. I know it seems like, well, one eating style should fit all categories. That could not be further from the truth. In fact, on some spectrums, like from a 1 hour time trial to a 8 hour one-day epic ride, the fueling strategies before, during, and after can be quite dramatically different and need to be practiced in advance. Many of you do a lot of training to get ready for your events, but it's always that last minute thinking, oh right, what am I going to eat? What do I eat for breakfast? It seems like such an innocuous, simple question, but that one answer can define how well you do or how you feel or how much you suffer or how much you're a slave to your food for the entire day or days in a row of what you're doing. This question comes in from Cheryl from the UK. Graeme, I hear a lot of mixed things from different riders in my morning group. What's the best thing to eat before I do a long, hard ride? Cheryl, it's a complex answer, but the simple thing to think of, and this goes pretty much in general for everything, is everything comes down to helping you balance your blood sugar. Period. End of discussion. Whatever kind of riding we want to do, the goal is to basically treat yourself like a diabetic. I know many of you that have read different diet plans that use lower carb or carb regulation or what I would call carb consciousness. Knowing what kind of carbohydrates you're using, what kind of sugars you're using, and when you're inserting them is the most important thing. You can eat carbohydrates. You can eat different types of sugars, but when you insert them, how you use them will kind of define how they react within your body. And that's what a lot of people don't think about, is they're thinking about only the foods that they're eating as opposed to when and how they're using those foods to get what they want from them. In the morning, especially early morning, if possible, regardless of the distance of what you're doing, I would recommend eating very little to nothing and getting on the bike as soon as you can. So for me, typically it's a cup of coffee and I'm on the bike with fuel ready to go. And that fuel, yes, can consist of carbohydrates or nuts or high fat components. It depends on what kind of ride I'm doing. There's different times of the year where I will have different ingredients, if you will, in the food that I use within my rides, depending on the goals that I have. But again, that's a longer discussion than I have in this video. That's going to be my master's base fueling strategies for the off season and winter to help you trim up, lose weight, build your endurance and stamina by using food along with your training, or how to use food along with your training. The reason why we want to control insulin is simple. Once blood sugars go up, especially right before you ride, insulin has to release. And once insulin releases, to regulate that blood sugar, that incoming energy supply, it's going to begin to tank your regulated blood sugar between your central nervous system and your working body. That works against you because your body's trying to deposit calories as you're about to ask your body to extract or remove or withdraw those same calories. So your body's working against its hormonal self, is the easiest way to think about it. So by getting on the bike in a slightly fasted state, you force your body to move into an immediate withdrawal position. And that keeps your insulin basically near zero and allows your body to begin to extract the blood sugar that it needs right away. And more importantly, if you are training right or conditioned properly, your body will be more inclined to want to move towards beta oxidation or fat utilization. Now, look, we've been conditioned again and again to believe that if we are not just chow hounds on carbohydrates and oats and wheats and different things we're growing packed with carbohydrate nutrients that we're not worthy of being a cyclist. I think most people are waking up to this. It's got some merit and value that we want carbohydrates coming in to regulate blood sugar and to help us with our glycogen stores at strategic times before and after our rides. But packing in 300, 400 calories of carbohydrates per hour to make your body force it to regulate insulin and glycogen and utilizing that blood sugar on an ongoing basis gets more complicated than it needs to be. Most of you believe that if you're not consuming carbohydrates ongoing, right beforehand, big breakfast, bowl of cereal, pancakes, bagels, that if you don't continue to do that, that you're going to have a bonk ride, a flatline ride. And although initially, by slowly weaning yourself off those high intakes of sugars coming in, you may not feel right away. But as your body learns, hey, I don't have to be a slave to this incoming carbohydrates all the time, it will begin to roll itself over to becoming a fat utilizer, which is really what you want. I mean, at hour 4 of an event, if your body's not burning a high priority of its calories coming from stored body fat, you're screwed. Because your body can only store so much sugar at one time. You can only carry so much carbohydrates on your body or be a slave to those for so long until your body begins to want to collapse. It becomes basically an addict, much like a heroin addict or a smoker or an alcoholic. Your body will continually require those carbohydrates coming in large quantities with stronger and stronger pull towards making sugar available right away. There's different carbohydrates that have different profiles of how fast they are able to release sugar within the bloodstream. Okay? I'm not going to get into that right now, but in a nutshell, your body will crave the higher sugars as opposed to the slow-moving sugars that come in a little bit more gentle and don't cause such a ruckus. As a result of that, your body will constantly keep going up and then keep going down, keep going up, keep going down. Someone that is more regulated with their blood sugar by starting with no food or minimal food coming in or a non-insulin releasing food will be more even throughout the day. And that even level is what we want because that creates an even level energy output. I hope that's helpful. Again, please refer to my master's base coaching module that's in there. It'll go in detail, different types of uses of carbohydrates, when to use them, when not to use them, types of carbohydrates to use, depletion rides, every fueling technique that I know of and have used and learned outside of textbooks, by the way. Textbooks do not discuss this in any way, shape, or form. I have a degree in physiology, a minor degree in nutrition, and I'm telling you, they discuss it based on the food guide pyramid from 20 or 30 years ago, or however long it's been, that's so antiquated and so full of shit based on corporations telling us what we need to eat, as opposed to listening to your freaking body, trying things out, see what works for you, see what makes sense, because what I say, what other experts say in regards to fueling is secondary compared to how your body reacts. And last thing with that is if you're not willing to try new things, you think, well, I've always eaten cereal before I go, I've always had 500 calories on an hour-long ride, I always have sugar mixes in my drinks, that's always worked for me. You got to be willing to try something a little bit different just to see how your body responds. See, people are too quick to dismiss this because they've been doing it the old-fashioned way for so long, and even though they're really not progressing with it, they don't know any better, or they're petrified of being wrong this whole time. And trust me, I understand. Next question is coming from Peter. Graeme, I'm training for a 4-day ride in Colorado. What's the best training program of yours that you recommend? I have certain climbs we're expecting to be between 1 and 3 hours long. I've been to Colorado. I've climbed Colorado mountains up to 12,000 feet. Yeah, they take a long time to climb. Now, as an example, I don't know where you live, Peter. You didn't mention it here, but I'm assuming that you don't have, because you labeled it here, that you're a little bit nervous about climbing for that length of time repeatedly day after day. It is a concern. What do you do if you live in a place where you don't have lots of long climbs available? I live in Connecticut. If I go out for my ride today for 4 or 5 hours, I bet you I can get into 6 or maybe 7,000 feet of vertical gain. Wow, that's a lot of vertical gain over that distance, and hard vertical gain at that. The problem is that most of those climbs are lasting between 3 and maybe up to 5 or 6 minutes, not very long at all. And it's the duration and tension that is the real key here. So although I've accumulated X amount of time climbing over the distance, the cumulative effect per climb is shallow compared to what you would want in Colorado or Tucson or outside of San Diego or in the Alps or the Pyrenees or wherever you're climbing. What do? First of all, he asked about which training program I would recommend or be using. If you have not been using the base program, Cyclo-90 Base or Cyclo-90 Masters Base, which the Masters would probably be the best for most of you that are watching this, that Masters Base protocol is going to build muscular endurance. Whether you want to climb 2-minute hills, 20-minute hills, or 2-hour long hills, muscular endurance is required. End of discussion. It needs to be high. It needs to be a huge component of your fitness. We've talked about this endlessly in previous videos. And the reason for that is if muscular endurance is at a premium, now I can extract longer and longer segments of that muscular endurance from 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half. If the muscular endurance is not there, you're going to get 30 minutes into a 2-hour climb and you're going to be kaput. And a lot of you are going to think, well, I'm just going to put an easier gear on, I'm going to spin my way up. Look, we talked about this already as well. If you're running a 34, 32, monster, spread on your bike, and you think you're just going to spin up a 3-hour climb in Colorado with no oxygen, with poor muscular endurance, think again. You're going to be pedaling squares at 40 RPM, even with your largest spread available on the bike. And the reason why is that you haven't addressed your muscular endurance. Now, we do it both on the bike and off the bike. With the Masters Base program, the core workouts, the iron workouts, they're all there for a reason. That structure has to be rock solid so you can maintain longer and longer tension. Now, beyond that, we have to be working on extracting longer periods of climbing. 2 different ways that I've done it in the past and 2 ways that I recommend it for you in my programs and in this video. Number 1, obviously the indoor trainer. This is where the indoor trainer really begins to shine because you can sit on an indoor trainer and simulate an hour and a half, 2-hour long climb at a sustained power or heart rate and or heart rate output. Let's say zone 3 power, zone 3 heart rate output for 2 hours straight with your wheel elevated in the front. Presto Bango Bongo, you are now practicing what it would be like to climb continuously with no break, no descending, no coasting, no nothing, inside on the trainer for that climb in Colorado. You'll be doing that once or twice a week. A great example for doing that would be my Cyclo Soul trainer workout, which is 2.5 hours long, which is all based on zone 3 plus muscular endurance. It won't be a continuous climb the whole time, but it'll be as close as you can with one of the workouts that I have for great results. Second thing is if you want to do this outside and you don't have a lot of hills around your area, the irony is you want to find a place in your area that is as flat as all get out, even if you have to do it as a looped course. Pancake flat, ideally with some headwinds. And again, this is an age-old tactic that cyclists have been using long before the indoor trainer, long before power meters, where, hey, I gotta get ready for the Pyrenees or the Alps. I live in Belgium. What am I gonna do? Well, I've got lots of flat roads and truckloads of frickin' wind. That creates resistance. What is a hill climb? It is gravity causing resistance. As you work against that resistance, your body gets stronger, propped up into the wind, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour long at a time. It doesn't sound like maybe enough for Colorado, but trust me, you can build huge amounts of climbing strength, make the gear a little bit larger, meaning make the cog in the rear a little bit smaller, big ring in the front. And again, what this really comes down to is effort over time. It doesn't necessarily have to be a climb. It has to be effort, in this case typically zone 3, possibly up to zone 3 plus, just under your threshold, for longer periods of time. On paper, if you're doing this day after day after day, you want to make sure you can repeat that day after day after day. If you're looking for the program after base is complete, you want to look to my Cyclo-90 Masters in season in particular, either my one-day epic for one-day monster rides like the triple bypass, the double triple bypass, the death ride, hotter in hell, all these different one-day epic rides. And then I've got my multi-day endurance programs as well. How to do this day after day with cumulative fatigue. Both of them are going to be rock solid for getting your muscular endurance stronger, your fitness stronger for these, helping you understand how to not just train for it, but how to fuel right for them as well. So going back to the first question, what do I eat before my ride, within my ride, after the ride? These things are pivotal depending on what type of ride you're doing, what type of ride is coming up, and what your overall agenda is. Okay, so all these things have to fuse together. My friends, I hope these answers have been helpful. I know I always get a little bit long-winded, but I just get too excited about what I'm doing. Looking forward to my ride today. Until we speak again, drink good coffee, have some fun. I'll talk to you soon.